This video, just like the last one, is for me, for my future self, if I want to revisit this 5, 10 years from now, if I'm still around. And maybe for my son, if he cares to know how his dad thought at the time and how he developed. But just like last one, it's a continuation with some internal stuff that I'm sitting with, or as it turns out, my inability to sit with it. But I've been thinking about the existential desperation that I feel, and that's been going on for maybe a year or even more. And what I'm talking about is the desperation that comes from just realizing that there is no way for me to ever understand my existence. It's just not in the cards. It's impossible. It's like asking my finger to explain the whole hand. Well, the finger is in a way a product of the hand. It cannot explain anything beyond itself because the hand is bigger than the finger, right? So how can a human little mind that's associated, at least in the physical world, with this brain, how can it explain the entire universe or existence or God, if I want to use this name? It's impossible. The analogy my teacher and mentor Bernardo Kastrup uses, it's like asking a termite to explain quantum physics. It's impossible. So that's the desperation I'm talking about, the bigness of the questions, the awareness that there are no answers. Why all of this? How did existence come about? Did it come about? Even the inability to comprehend the question, because all of these questions are even coming from within space-time, which I know it's not fundamental, so I can't even ask the proper question. And that makes it even more desperate and lonely. But that's not the point. The point is I've become aware of an elaborate strategy I've devised of avoiding contact with other people. Why? Because the bigness of the questions and because they cannot meet me there. Now, is there ego in this? Absolutely, all the way. But I've noticed that in normal social settings, unplanned social settings, and some even planned social settings that are not organized by me, I tend to be more of an observer than a participant in the event. Oftentimes, sometimes I can be a participant and then I lose myself in it, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But oftentimes I just observe. And the reason why I observe is because I'm telling myself, what's the point? I'm sitting with this existential dread and nobody can meet me there. Again, ego all the way. But the point is, from my last video, I talked about this. There is the watcher, so I'm constantly watching myself. I talked about my social anxiety and how I've constructed that sense of self by attributing qualities to myself by what I think others see in me without ever knowing how they see me, right? So it's connected to that, the watcher, the observer that's always observing, the observer's observer, and all the meta levels. Anyways, so this is the excuse. And to not engage with people, I have a ready answer. I say, well, I have a very rich inner world, so I can sit with myself and I'm not bored. And in a way, that's true. I do have a rich inner world, but the irony is that if I analyze my inner world, oftentimes is to judge myself in private. So that's the whole irony in it. But anyways, I was sitting with that and I was going, let me let me see if I can unpack this even more. Why this inability to engage with others, and why this existential dread and desperation. And what I realize is that, well, let me mention this before I share with my future self, or if anyone cares to watch this. I always keep in mind the ego development theory by Susan Cook-Greuter. It's been a very, very telling framework for me to kind of see where others are in their development and categorize myself in my own development. So I kind of know which stage I am in, which stage is my home stage. Of course, we vary our stages based on how much at peace we are or how much in stress we are. So there is a home base, right? A home stage for me. So I know what that one is. And I was projecting from that stage. I'm not going to even mention which stage that is, because that's also ego. But I was projecting from that stage, and I was going, wow. Initially, I was thinking this is even worse as the ego dissolves even more, because this existential dread and utter eternal desperation fills up the whole space. So if I cannot sit with that now, how do I sit with it if I am blessed enough to soften the ego enough to be able to move to other stages, which is not a goal, but if I am able to. And then I realized, but no, this is a projection I'm doing from this present stage onto the next stages. But in these next stages, it's probably completely different, because it's as the ego softens, this becomes less of a problem probably. And then, very interesting, the interesting part is I don't know, and I cannot even project, because as I'm projecting into the upper stages, I am doing this from the values I have now and the tools I have now. The ego development theory itself says that there is no way to project into the upper stages, because they're opaque to us, they're invisible to us. Why? Because we don't have the tools of these stages. We always judge from the present tools. So whatever in inner elaboration I'm going through is just about invalid, because it's coming from this stage. And just the fact that I've already positioned myself in a stage speaks to this need of the ego to find a place for itself, and it's a status claim. So I know that. But anyways, here is what I am arriving at as I unpack this even more. I talked about this in the previous video. I think that I realized very recently that I cannot stay with the present moment, because it's never good enough for me. I need my experience to be at a 9 or a 10. So everything below 9 or 10 does not even register for me. So an experience of 7 is dismissed. And from this present moment, I'm dismissing it, and I'm looking towards some imaginary future moment when an event will be at a 9 or a 10, so that I can feel alive. And I tend to dismiss the present moment because I seek a future moment in the present moment. I seek a future moment that will give me what the present moment doesn't give me. And so I perpetually reject that present moment. And the irony is that I always have only one moment, and that's the present moment. When the future comes, it'll still be a present moment. I'll never be in any future. I always will be in one present moment. So here is what happens now. Upon sitting with this a little longer, I should say, what I'm realizing is that this is my way of rejecting contact with others because they cannot meet me there where I am. Is there ego in this? Yes, probably, of course. But at least I'm aware of it. But because I'm rejecting that contact, because we cannot meet at the same level or place, that is an elaborate strategy for me to reject the present moment. And it doesn't have anything to do with any social setting or anybody else. It has everything to do with me and my inability to sit with that eternal dread. It's a strategy for me to avoid this moment, because this moment, it's never good enough, and there will be a moment in the future when there will be closure. And that's utterly an inability to stay with the realization that there is no closure ever. And so what an elaborate strategy for me to avoid just being with, just staying with this existential dread. You know, existence itself, that must be the dread it is in eternally, because it has no way to contemplate itself or know itself directly, because to observe yourself you have to be at another vantage point, right? So that's why I'm here. That's why you, the future me, is here. My son, or anybody caring to watch this. It's like we're in a bottle filled with a fizzy drink liquid, and inside of that fizzy drink were these bubbles of gas that spin up and then disappear as they rise. So they always spin up and disappear. They show up for a little bit of time and gone, and new ones show up and gone. So that's the game eternity plays with itself, right? So that it can observe itself from different vantage points. These bubbles inside of the bottle. Why inside? Because there is no outside of the bottle, right? It's eternal and infinite to different things, but there are no borders or boundaries to this bottle. It just continues always, eternally. And so the only way to contemplate itself, to observe itself from another vantage point, is to spring up another bubble, which is me and you, and to do that infinitely more, because it's an infinite game and it's an eternal game, so that it can continue observing itself, so that it can know itself. But will it ever know itself? Well, speaking from within space and time again, I don't know. That's one of the big questions, right? It's an eternal, impossible question. But the point is, I'm rambling, but the point is, even existence itself needs to engage, it needs to commune, it needs these bubbles, and it only knows itself by being in contact, in a way, with these bubbles. And so I am disengaging, or not trying to engage, or making sure I don't engage with other bubbles around me, because of my inability to stay with the bigness of the moment. And nature itself, existence itself, or God, if I'm going to use that word, needs the communion so that it can be with itself, so that it can contemplate itself, so that it can observe itself from all possible vantage points. And so, very interesting how my strategy is seeking a way out where there is no way out. And here is the last interesting thing I realized. In the rare moments when I am in the present fully, and I forget myself, and there is nothing but the present moment for me. Such moments like with my son, with my 4-year-old son, when I am able to be fully present with that moment and not distracted in some way, which I can be. In these moments, none of these questions exist for me. None of this dread. Everything is gone. I lose myself in the present moment. And so, how interesting. The present moment is everything I have. When I become aware of the present moment, I want to escape it because I cannot stay with it. And I'm not going to say anything else after that, because anything else would be the beginning of another strategy for me to deal with that. And what this moment is asking for is to not do that, to just stay with it and be okay.